Thank you all for joining us for the latest of Innovation Forum's webinar. Today, as you'll have seen from the title and everything, we'll be looking at climate risk and adaptation and how we can prepare farmers for the effects of climate change. You'll see my name, but I'm Tanya Richard. I'm head of research and stakeholder engagement at Innovation Forum, and I have the pleasure of moderating the session today. First and foremost, I want to thank CottonConnect for partnering with us on this webinar and making this discussion possible. We're joined with Hardeep from CottonConnect, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But over the past few years, we've been hosting very similar conversations and actually held a very similar conversation at our recent Sustainable Landscapes and Commodities Forum, and where we've been able to talk with a lot of interesting speakers at our Future of Climate, Future of Food series on a lot of the similar topics that we'll be talking about today. But it's fun to be able to do it, and nice to be able to do it in sort of a bigger setting and a virtual setting from time to time. So that's what we were just talking about right before. So for the next 45 minutes, we'll be looking at various different topics. It's likely not news to anyone on this call that farmers remain to be one of the most vulnerable to the increasing environmental hazards that are brought on by climate change. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how Hardeep and John and their organizations, and then everyone in the room, perhaps in the Q&A, can share how you've been working in how to bring farmers to the table and really try to prepare them for the years to come. So for the next 45 or so minutes, we'll be looking at areas such as how to work better with farmers on preparing them for the effects of climate change. What are the leading tools, strategies, technologies to help them transition to that climate smart agriculture? And then, of course, what's the role of regenerative agriculture in helping farmers in all of these areas? So it is my pleasure to be joined by two great speakers who are working on these types of strategies directly. So we have John Steele, CEO at Cafédirect, and Hardeep Desai, Head of Farm Operations at CottonConnect South Asia. And yes, so we'll have a great discussion for 45 minutes, but the idea of this live conversation is for everyone to get to contribute to it. So I'm sure Zoom is not new to anyone in this room, but just a reminder that you can use the Q&A function on your window to ask your questions. Best to not leave it till the end. You have a better chance of getting it asked if you ask it as soon as possible. And also if you're able to direct it to either Hardeep or John, makes my life much easier, and also make sure that you get the right answer that you do want. And there's also like an upvoting function and everything on Zoom. So if there's good questions, instead of asking it again, just upvote the ones that you see maybe are quite similar. So I think we've had most people join by now, but maybe if I just turn to you first, Hardeep, to start things off, tell us a bit more about CottonConnect, what you do, what commodities you work in. We have at least two great commodities here. So what commodities do you work in and where? And a little bit sort of paint us a picture of what capacity you work in with farmers. Over to you, Hardeep.
Thank you, Tanya. Hi, everyone. Myself, Hardeep Desai, and I work with CottonConnect as Head of Farm Operations. CottonConnect is an innovative social enterprise, and we work with all the stakeholders of cotton supply chain. We work through a network of local partners, and we focus on farmers' capacity building program, take them to journey of sustainability, and then connect them with the supply chain. So we work in multiple countries, and we work with mostly smallholder cotton farmers, and we also focus on the inclusive approach. So we work with women farmers and also the other disadvantaged people in the village. So we have a multi-country approach, and we are present in multi-countries, and India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and other countries across the globe. And we have the grassroots level team through which we deliver the training and capacity building program for the farmers, and also deliver our supply chain related services for the customers. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Hardeep. Already a lot of the things that we want to cover, but I wonder if, most of the people on the call will have a bit of an idea of what the effects are on farm, but since you work directly with farmers, could you give us a little bit more or paint us a bit of a picture of what the main effects that you've seen of climate change on those farms?
So climate change related interventions are an integral part of our all the interventions at the grassroots level. We inculcate the vision among the farmers about what are the challenges related to climate change, and then build their capacity, create understanding, and then support them so that they can take small steps to address the issues related to climate change. There are the issues related to climate change will again farmers will face nowadays. They are facing in day-to-day life and also during their agriculture practices. So we focus on better crop planning, how best they can grow their crop along with the the monsoon arrival of monsoon or the monsoon pattern, and also take small steps on their farms related to soil and moisture conservation, then also biodiversity, agroforestry, intercropping. So make them more sustainable, make them self-dependent. Gradually, they can, in a better position to address the issues related to climate change. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Hardeep. Over to you, John. Similar question. What do you do at Cafédirect? What commodities are you primarily working in? If it's different to coffee, please let the audience know what geographical areas as well, and maybe paint us a bit of a picture of what that looks like in your area of work.
Great. No, thank you, Tanya. If people don't know Cafédirect, and we're 31 years young, and we were set up by smallholder farmers and institutions in the UK coming together to try and change the lives of smallholder farmers and improve their livelihoods and the landscapes in which they operate. We work primarily in coffee. We've done some work in cocoa and tea, but we're primarily in coffee, and that is geographically Central America, Latin America, and East Africa are the three areas. And the way we work, we've always bought on 100% fair trade terms since the fair trade movement started in '94, and we buy coffee on organic terms as well. And so we try to pay the right price and pay prices in a way that creates impact and change. I think the other thing we do is we set up a farmer-led charity called Producers Direct in 2009. And that's very much about farmers leading the cause. So rather than developed country NGOs determining what's right, ensuring that farmers are empowered and own the change they're making. And through Producers Direct, our work to mitigate climate changes across those different geographies, and it's based very much on a kind of peer-to-peer learning process, so very much about exemplary farms showing other farmers how to diversify their income, how to engage women in leadership, how to use technology to not only mitigate climate change, but also to engage younger people so that you don't end up with, in coffee farming in particular, you've got the average age is 65. And so you really need to engage the next generation in terms of having vibrant entrepreneurial family farms rather than leaving to go to the city. And also, one of the key aspects we build on is the financing of this kind of work, but also the diversification of income. So I think, monocropping over the years is can be a very dependent situation. And with climate change, it's a very volatile situation as well. So certainly, I'm sure you'll come on to this, but diversifying income. And so you're creating a vibrant farm with other sources of income, whether that's fish farming or vegetable farming and so on and so forth, I think is another key component that we encourage. To your point, I think about, how does climate change manifest itself? I mean, from a small example, I can remember about 7 years ago, a tea farmer having frost on his tea bushes in Kenya for the first time. It's the first time he'd seen this kind of thing on his tea leaves, and he didn't really know what it was. And so, there's a whole kind of quite significant change in terms of just the climate, but also at the other end of the spectrum, in Peru at altitude, you're getting phenomenal soil erosions from the rainfall that's occurring, and the inconsistent kind of seasonal changes are really impacting, not only your ability to get the right kind of crop throughout the season through your harvest, but also to physically move it around and physically deal with the conditions. So it's quite dramatic in many cases.
Great. Thank you, John. I wanted to maybe step back a little bit, and I definitely want to touch more on income diversification in just a moment, but you mentioned the peer-to-peer learning and sort of exemplary farms. So maybe just on that, how, maybe just give us a bit more detail on how that's worked. What do you see as working well in engagement with farmers? How do you bring them correctly in the correct way to the table, in a correct training way? And yeah, how do we best engage them in the conversation?
At a macro level, we have we run the company with farmers on the board. So at a macro level, decision making is involving and having leadership from the farming communities that we serve, and then that translates down through the supply chain. At a practical level on farm, I mean, I went to an exemplar farm about diversification last year. Actually, maybe even longer than that, with the pandemic, losing track of time. And it was quite an amazing experience, because if you go to a coffee farm, you're at altitude, and historically you would just see coffee being grown, and with not much else going on. And this farm in Peru, I think the first thing that struck you is that the husband and wife shared the farm with you and very proudly showed you their business. And it was very much the wife who was in charge, the wife who explained to you the journey they'd been on. And this particular farm, they showed you they had two effectively quite large fish ponds where they were growing fish, if that's the right word, probably isn't. And they created this second source of protein for them that they could then sell in the local market, and they could also have for their own use. And they had an amazing vegetable garden, something that was also very, very changing the landscape remarkably, but changing their income. And they had lots of methods of managing the core crop as well. But I think the other thing that struck us was, in Peru, guinea pig is part of the diet there, and they had this incredible guinea pig farm. And this lady talked about how they'd initially put the guinea pigs on the floor, but then kind of local vermin would come and take them away, and then they put them on posts, and how they then had worked out that they could also use the guinea pig's feces as organic manure for the coffee and everything. So there's a really, really kind of rich experience, and it's changing people's lives, rather than feeling like you're trapped in a commodity and you're working the land 18 hours a day just to try to get your commodity to a huge market from which you're quite removed. You're further engaged, and you're also building a livelihood that has much more meaning as well, I think. So, I mean, that's just a small example of how it's felt to me.
No, that paints it quite well. Thank you, John. I wonder, Hardeep, if you wanted to add anything here. I mean, you're working really directly with those people that are growing the crops. How have your conversations been with farmers? How do you engage them properly?
So thanks, Tanya. Thanks, John. So as far as farmers are concerned, we focus on their capacity building so that they can address the issues related to climate change. So the very basic principle we have adopted is the inclusion. So how best way we can have a participatory approach in which we can sit with the farmers, discuss with them, discuss their challenges, and then try to get more information, know their challenges, and then develop a plan of action so that we can deliver our best as per their need. So that in participatory approach we do participatory the rural appraisal exercise, so at the PR exercise at the grassroots level, and then have their information and suggestion in the plan. So that is one thing. The other thing is the piece of land would remain same for for the years. So how best farmers can take optimum results out of that piece of land of their farms without compromising the nature. So we focus on small steps which are easy to be taken on their farms, like optimization of plant population. So if they increase the number of plants per acre or per piece of their farms, then it would definitely give them good results. Then considering the monsoon pattern, we also guide them and motivate them to go for short duration varieties, so that they can get the crops in minimum or short cycle or short duration, and the same benefits they can take. The other thing is how best we can increase their livelihood or support their livelihoods. So as part of that intervention, we focus on multi-cropping and intercropping. So through intercropping, they can also earn good money. Like, if they go for green gram, then roughly they can earn 7,000 to 8,000 rupees per acre before selling their cotton. So that's an added advantage. And intercrops also help the farmers to bring biodiversity on farm and also help in pest control measures. So it's a win-win situation. So that type of intervention we do. We support them in in also do convergence with the existing schemes of governments at the village level, so that our farmers can get optimum benefits of our intervention. So that holistic approach we have, in which we build the capacity of the farmers, we train them, we support them. We also conduct lots of field demonstrations. So field demonstration, the farmers can take on their farms. They can see the actual benefit of those sustainable practices, and then take those practices on scale. So, and other farmers can also see and interact with the farmers, demo farmers. So that's how we work, and then we link them with the supply chain, so that they can get the overall optimum benefits of their farming practices. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Hardeep. And maybe just bringing in a question at this point from the audience. There was a question on improving crop yield, and that was sort of guide throughout the whole conversation, is how to improve crop yield. But did you want to add anything at this point on what sort of methods you've seen to that improve crop yield, Hardeep?
So crop yield is we cannot assign the matter of crop yield to one particular practices, and there is no book cut solution for that. So we'll have to have region specific adopt, considering the soil and climatic conditions of that particular area. Also the facility related to irrigation water, the practices farmers have adopted throughout the season matters a lot. So we'll have to also consider the soil health, how best is the organic carbon in the soil matter, and then the need of soil in terms of nutrient management. So that also we'll have to see. So lots of depends on the soil, water conditions, climatic conditions, and also the seeds. So which variety of seeds they are using. So it's a cumulative process. But yes, if they go for certain practices, like starting from selection of seeds to optimization of seed spacing, then also intercropping, and also using the biorational pesticides like concoction of 10 leaves, or maybe the Nimark or other biorational pesticides, and also the compost, vermicompost, then chances are high that the yield will increase over the years. So, but that they will have to continue that practices, and also go for soil testing. So they will come to know about the exact nutrient requirement of their soil. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Hardeep. John, did you want to add anything at this point? It seemed like you might have had something.
Yeah, I think on technology specifically, which I think was where you were starting off with. We've developed and tested quite a few technologies in terms of crop yields. There are lots of practical things to do, but our charity Producers Direct has developed a piece of technology called Croppy with the International Center of Tropical Agriculture and an NGO called IDEO. And Croppy very much uses a mobile phone and artificial intelligence to take a photograph of your coffee bush, and then from that you can, the AI creates a yield prediction and then looks at the climatic factors that are going to go on in the season, and enables the farmer to make better decisions about how to invest and where to invest during the season, and how to manage the yields from the coffee bush. I think that there's some very, very practical things that are done, but there's also increasingly the use of tech, which just can make the interventions more precise, I guess. So that's just a small example.
Yeah, I mean, let's stay on that for a bit. There are a lot of questions in the audience that are related to technology. And one of them was maybe the use of, I mean, maybe, give the audience a little bit of information on the technology that you use on farm, but then specifically there were questions on satellite-based monitoring as well. So if there was something that you work with in that space, please add that to your notes as well.
I mean, certainly, in addition to croppy, there's a lot of work on weather stations and other ways of understanding how climate is affecting on farm. I think the other thing that we've been very passionate about as a community over time is sharing information, because I'm sure all of the listeners will know that a lot of these smallholder farms are quite isolated, and there's plenty to learn and share across different continents and countries. And so I think there was the establishment of WeFarm, which is very much a peer-to-peer data sharing platform. And then we now have a thing called Farm Direct that allows the sharing of data, so that you can see, specifically, I think with diversification, you can see how those diversifications are working, and then work out which ones are going to provide you with the greatest income change. So it tracks the kind of the health of your non-core developments, whether that's, I don't know, avocados or guinea pigs or whatever that's mentioned, and then help you to develop a more profitable business from that to support your main crop. So I think ultimately we'd see that also as kind of creating even a route to market through the digital kind of marketplace that it can create. So no, the team at Producers Direct are very data driven, and very much wanting data to be in the hands of the farmer, and therefore be, I suppose, owned and used most. When I saw the question pop up on satellite, I didn't really feel like I got an example to bring to life there. So.
No, that's right. Thank you, John. Hardeep, maybe go ahead.
Yeah, I can add. So we will have to bring in technology interventions while we working with the farmers, and for the benefits of the farmers. So especially in terms of soil and constructing the soil and water conservation structures, we take help of mobile based applications. So we have tied up with an organization which is known as FES in India. So with the help of that organization, what we do that we use mobile technology to identify the appropriate structures to create the water and water conservation structures like farm ponds, check dams. And there are also certain mobile applications available with this organization, on which help we also get ready-made design and estimates. So what we have done, that the entire applications work through the GIS based solutions, and we have prepared the estimates, budget and estimates, along with the proper location of the structures where we can construct that structures. And we have approached the local district authority and also the local village level panchayat in the village. So they have approved the construction of those structures to different schemes. So we are getting good results of that. So that is the use of technology, I can say, that for constructing soil and water or water conservation structures. I think we can also use technology in a better way. Yeah.
And then specifically on the relation to farmers that John's touched on, how do you bring that data or communicate that data to farmers in a way that they can use, in a way that's fair as well? Hardeep.
So there are 2-3 examples. In addition to this check dams and other related data, we interact with the farmers community in the village. There is an exercise which is known as water budgeting exercise. So that also in that also there is an application which give you the idea about availability of the water in the village, and then also the this overall scenario in the village, the consumption of water. In addition to that, we also use well monitoring application. So we record the the water level of wells twice in a year, pre-monsoon and post-monsoon, and then compare the situation. How was the scenario at each and every well we have taken into the study, and then we present analysis in front of community that look, this is the results of water tables in your wells. So now you will have to consider and think about the status of water in your village, whether you would like to go for water recharging using rainwater harvesting structures, or maybe you can take an appropriate decision that you will not go for water intensive crop in the coming season, and you will plan better crop cycles in your village, adopt better crop growing in your village, which consumes less water. So but equally you can get the good profit from those crops. So that type of exercise also we conduct. So it's a data sharing with community, and then take informed decisions by the community. So that exercise is entirely participatory. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Hardeep. I can already see a ton of questions coming through, and we've already tried to weave them into the conversation as smoothly as possible. But yeah, just a reminder for anyone else, if you have any questions, just to pop them into the Q&A. There are a lot of questions, other questions on technology, and I'm trying to bring them back into this. But maybe over to you, John. There was a question from Rachel on what kind of technologies are being used to inspire and engage younger generations. And you mentioned your work in bringing, sort of the farmers of the future into your work. So did you have anything to add on that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think technology per se is very appealing to people much younger than me who understand what to do with it and feel it, unleashes some independence and so on. I think one of the points I saw in the Q&A was, I think if you just throw technology at people, you're not going to get it adopted in any way. And some of the farming communities are not even collecting data, and then they're collecting data in a very rudimentary way. So even just providing a structured, almost quite basic method of collecting data in the first instance is a first step to then moving that data into some kind of phone-based or technological application that then gets you to start to analyze that data. So I think it's, to one of the points, I think it's not. I think you could fail very badly on technology if you don't recognize where you're starting from, which sometimes is without even any data, let alone any insight or application. And certainly we found in Africa in particular, a mobile phone that isn't a smartphone is a better way of working to begin with, because you've got much more acceptance of that rather than the smartphone, although over time everyone's catching up, as it were. The other thing is, I think the technology that helps add value in market is quite appealing to people. So you've got some cases where diversified income, you've got, I don't know, people reselling fruit by the side of the road or something in a quite low value, very hugely competitive and very value destructive way. And so finding ways to add value to those secondary crops, and then to enable a marketplace to work through technology, is very appealing to younger people, because they can see the monetary value that's been added, and it's very much about kind of entrepreneurship and trading. So I think it feels to me like it works quite well where it's creating a market for you or creating value for you rather than just monitoring necessarily the crops. But it's very, very much a personal comment.
Great. Thank you, John. At the moment, I think it would be interesting to maybe move to a bit more, and we've touched on this already, but sort of the diversification, crop diversification, income diversification angle. Moving to you, Hardeep, what do you see as the role of income diversification in all of this, and in providing farmers with that ability to adapt and transition and create resilience?
So, in terms of creating climate resilient farming communities, we focus on income generation through various activities and try so that the farmers can get multiple incomes and reduce their dependency on monocropping pattern. So if they grow only one crop, and if something goes wrong with their monsoon and availability of irrigation, then they will definitely feel crisis. So if we ask motivate them to grow for multi-cropping, intercropping, then they can definitely get income from an additional income from those interventions. The other thing is we also focus on motivating the farmers so that they can start the production of natural inputs at the grassroots level. So the farmers can come together. They can start interventions for producing the vermicompost or the natural inputs like concoction of 10 leaves and other biorational pesticides in the village itself. So there is a win-win situation for farmers. They can utilize the natural inputs for their farms, as well as they can sell the surplus quantity to other farmers. So they can also get an additional livelihood in that aspect. So and the other benefit of that activity is we can reduce the toxicity load on the earth. So if we increase the usage of biorational pesticides, and we motivate the farmers to use that, then definitely we will get good result in related to environment and environmental aspects, and also the livelihood. So basically it's there are small steps related to their crop cycles, they related to intercrops, related to other production of natural inputs in the village itself, and also linking them with the additional livelihood opportunity. So so that also we do through convergence. So bringing the developing their skills in vocational training, so like tailoring or other local skills. So and then link them with the government scheme, so they can get an additional income. Also supporting them in terms of goatry or other animal husbandry schemes. So it's a holistic approach. We help farmers in different ways and increase their income. So there is no only one source of income, but they get other incomes also, and that minimizes the shocks related to climate change. So that's how we try to build the climate resilient farming community. Yeah.
Thank you. Maybe John, in your work, you've already touched a little bit on that sort of crop diversification, but is there anything more that you wanted to add on that, and maybe touching on the role, like how you provide and how you support those farmers in developing that market access and that presence in other markets as well?
Yeah, I'll probably repeat myself, but I think the guinea pig example works very well because it's something that culturally works in Peru, and that not only provides the income from the guinea pigs themselves, but also the side effect of creating organic manure effectively. So it works not only in terms of income diversification, but also changing the way your cost inputs are into your main crop. So I think that does work really neatly in a number of ways. I think the other example in Kenya is bees and honey, which in the first instance you've got getting the income from the honey, and then we've been testing in Kenya, then trying to add value to the honey. So actually then doing some basic processing and jarring it and labeling it and trying to sell it further up the value of supply chain, rather than just selling the material. And I think that's fascinating because it really needs a lot of support in terms of understanding how you then actually sell a finished good into a market, even if it's just a local grocery store, compared to just selling it by the roadside. But certainly as a journey, it is much more challenging and rewarding, but it's much more in need of some help on the ground in terms of, how do you price your product? How do you make sure that it functions in the competitive set and all these kind of things? So for some farms, they wouldn't, you're trying to go too far, and you're going to end up with distraction and value destruction. So I think being very close to the farmers, which I think is coming through the conversation, generally means that you know where you're starting from, so that you're not being unrealistic, whether it's technology or whether it's market access. But I mean, to Hardeep's point, I think if you've got income that's away from your monocrop and that's also providing secondary benefits and giving you market access to different markets that are local and not just a huge traded global commodity that is, a lot of the aspects are outside of control. It's got to give you a feeling of empowerment much more, and a feeling of being in charge of your own destiny. So, yeah.
Great, thank you. There's been a few questions about sort of the regenerative agriculture angle, so maybe this is a good time to maybe move to that a little bit. In your work, maybe if I just stay with you, John, for this question, what role have you seen, or how has that relationship, or has anything changed in light of regenerative agriculture really taking center stage? And what do you feel is the role of regen ag in helping farmers increase climate resilience? You've mentioned also the fair trade and organic terms, so I wonder if that converges here at all, or how do those play together?
Okay, we'll have a go. Yeah, I mean, I think in particular organic, where we've really pushed organic in the last 6-7 years to quite high levels. It's sort of it's a kind of proxy for getting towards regenerative agriculture, but it's pretty, it's sort of, we viewed it as a thing to do now. I think then we're looking more into kind of what we think regenerative agriculture should look like from our farmers' perspectives and from our perspectives. And so we are, we haven't done it yet, but we are looking at what our principles and practices are, with a view to, in the next 7 or 8 years, move away from sort of shorthand use of organic and get into more complete understanding of how to manage a diverse ecosystem and how to manage soil health for the different aspects of I suppose a non-monocrop farm in the end, really. So I don't think we have all the answers. I think in the short term, we've been using certification, both fair trade and organic, to provide regenerative agriculture, and also, I guess, social and more environmental kind of initiatives. But really, I think we need to go much beyond that and define how you do create an environment that is creating the right environment that is enduring, really, so that you're managing soil health proactively and consistently. But for us, it is quite early stage to get into the science of it, and we've signed up to science-based targets, and we're building what we call our regenerative agricultural principles. But I think in the short term, we have used certifications really to give us a baseline.
Great. And Hardeep, we know that I know CottonConnect obviously have been working in the realm of regenerative agriculture for a little bit now, but have your relationships with farmers changed in light of regen ag, and how are you supporting, and how's CottonConnect rather supporting farmers in the transition?
Yeah, we also focus on regenerative agriculture, in which we support farmers to adopt the regenerative practices. Regenerative practices help a lot in addressing the challenges related to carbon emission, and helps a lot in terms of improving the soil health. So soil health management, then social welfare, and then animal welfare. So these 3 aspects we focus on in the regenerative program. And one of the good component of regenerative agriculture is the promotion of agroforestry. So in that agroforestry, we focus on again the livelihood aspects and also the nutrition aspect. So like we we motivate the farmers to grow for a combination of trees which can provide them fruit, which can provide them nutrition, and also the livelihood. So so that type of combination we suggest, so that the farmers can adopt tree plantation accordingly, like drumstick and other species are there. So multiple types of it's a combination of agroforestry, so that they can get benefit of that. And the other aspect is the focusing on the practices like minimum tillage or no tillage, so that also give good benefit in terms of carbon sequestration. So if the farmers they are continuously doing the tillage, then that can also lead the carbon emission. So how best we can motivate them and inculcate understanding about that link between the tillage and carbon emission. So then the farmers will realize slowly that yes, we can do better by adopting small steps. And also the again focus on multi-cropping, crop rotations, intercropping, that is also there. So that gives them an additional income as well as improve their soil fertility, so so that they can grow multiple crops on their farms in a better way, in a sustainable yeah.
Have you seen in your experience that there's any sort of opportunity, or have you seen it already happen, for a premium or markup of products made under these conditions?
So that link we haven't explored yet, but yeah, obviously if we bring certain elements related to certification and other aspects related to the social sustainability and overall improvement in the regenerative programs as per the requirement, then obviously we can have that mechanism in place in which the customer can definitely pay for the regenerative.
Thank you. Maybe John, over to you, slightly related, but there's a question from Mohammed in the comments about that issue of lack of finance, and if there's a way of engaging financial institutions and other organizations in these programs. So I wonder if you had anything to add to that.
I think I've just got the Q&A open. It's confusing me. Let me get back to you.
Tell me about it.
Yeah. I know that over time we've worked with institutions such as MasterCard to try to provide technology and small amounts of microfinance to an extent. I don't know how that ends in the end, because I think often you've got to engage enterprises that are looking at where they get to from a smallholder farmer's point of view. So really you need to have the same end goal in mind. And so I think we've engaged a number of different players over time, over sort of 20 years. I think one of our main partners, which was another question that was asked on the chat, is we're a multi-stakeholder company owned by farmers and by individuals, and also Oxfam, who set us up. But also one of our main backers is a company called Oikocredit, which is a global microfinance kind of business that works with lots of agricultural commodities across the whole planet. And we're more and more not only seeing them as an investor, but seeing them as a partner to access funding for different pieces of work, either at quite a low level, quite a micro level, or even at scale, as we're doing in Peru at the moment. And the great thing about somebody like Oikocredit is they are funded and governed in a way that is genuinely trying to make a difference to agriculture rather than being a commercial organization. So.
Great. I'm just taking note of time. It's already 45.
My goodness.
It has flown. So I just to end on something practical, in 20 seconds or less, if you could just each say something that you feel like the audience could just take away in terms of, they sit back at their desk tomorrow, what is like the first thing or something in the short term that they could focus on? Hardeep, over to you.
Yeah, I think the business can support these interventions in creating the climate resilient farming communities at the grassroots level. So we can get support from business in terms of doing small pilots on technology, agriculture technology, then also related to the micro irrigation or other areas of intervention. So those pilots, we can have those pilots, and then we can take those interventions on scale. So that is one thing. The crux of the message would be, most of the times farmers, they are not aware of the jargon, we can say climate change or related to climate change related intervention, but we will have to send a message in pieces so that they can understand the objective of those interventions easily. So that step we will have to take, understand their need, region specific approach. And I think as the climate change is a global phenomena, so we'll have to dream big, we'll have to start small and act now. So that is the call of time, act now. So whatever we can do, we should try our best. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Hardeep. John.
Wow, I was completely engrossed in listening to Hardeep. Let me see if I can remember the question and provide an answer. I mean, I think in the acting now bit, I more and more feel like it needs to be a pre-competitive collaborative intervention across markets. I think we've got some great examples of organizations such as CottonConnect that are doing brilliant work, but how do you change the whole system? And I think a number of the actors are, they are acting with probably the right intent, but within the wrong system, so that ultimately the change that's been made is not significant enough to change the livelihoods of smallholder farmers so that climate justice and social justice on farm occurs. And I think we need to act now and act at a scale of intervention that changes the value chain, I suppose, is ultimately what it is. And, if you were looking at starting with a blank piece of paper and creating a sustainable, enduring way to provide food for 8 billion people, you would not restrict the value and the capacity on farm as we have today. So I do think the need for businesses that are like-minded and authentic, such as CottonConnect, to engage with other organizations that need to change the system they operate, and to use other actors, whether it's NGOs or government, to also change the playing field, is increasingly urgent. And I love talking to businesses like ours and Hardeep's, where we're doing a good job, but we are being diluted all the time. And as a farmer, you must be incredibly frustrated to have 8 well-meaning businesses turning up with similar agenda points every other Thursday. God, you could do with a scalable intervention that helped you in a more enduring way. So that's my semi-rant. There you go.
I thought that was very much worth taking 4 more minutes of everyone's time. Hardeep and John, really, really, really great. Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said, John. I think let's encourage everyone to continue the conversation. There were really great questions coming from the audience. Get in touch with John, get in touch with Hardeep and CottonConnect and Cafédirect to see how maybe, we can move this conversation further than just this webinar. But yeah, thank you very much, John. Thank you very much, Hardeep and CottonConnect again for making this webinar possible. Everyone, you'll receive the recording afterwards as well. So yes, thank you for all the great questions. And thank you for everyone for joining.
Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody. And please do get in touch. No, thank you for that offer.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, John. Yeah.
Have a good day.
Yeah. Thank you.